This is MetroSource Minis, the official podcast of MetroSource Magazine and home of short-form interviews with your favorite personalities from the LGBTQ world and beyond. Quick, fun, and informative. It's MetroSource on the go. Out and proud since 1990. Well, hello, this is MetroSource Minis. I'm your host, Alexander Rodriguez, lead writer for MetroSource Magazine and avid podcaster. With so much hot air in Hollywood, I love chatting with somebody who doesn't pull punches and who makes their opinion transparent. Scott Schofield is an award-winning actor, writer, and producer, a trans influencer of Hollywood, making television history as the first openly transgender actor in daytime television with a recurring role on CBS's The Bold and the Beautiful. Also, he became the first transgender man nominated for any acting Emmy for the recurring role of Max on Studio City on Amazon Prime. And as a film actor, Scott has received international critical acclaim for his lead role in the 2018 feature film The Conductor, and his one-man special, Becoming a Man in 127 Easy Steps, premiered at the 2020 Tribeca Film Festival, and he can most recently be seen in HBO Max's docuseries Equal. And his solo performance, his 3 solo performance pieces, have toured major venues in the US and Europe with the support of the National Performance Network and the Princess Grace Foundation. And among his many credits in TV, film, and streaming, he consults for HBO's EUPHORIA and also consulted on the reboot of The Craft. I have learned more about the trans and acting community in one happy hour with Scott than I have in all my educational seminars and forums. Please welcome Mr. Scott Schofield.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Alexander. I'm so honored by your intro. Thank you.
I'm honored. We were just talking about, I can't believe it's been so many years since we've known each other. And the first time I was introduced to you was...
We met, 6 or 7 years ago at this point?
Yeah, it was your big press push for you being on The Bold and the Beautiful, which, of course, making TV history. So we're just going to get to it. And like I said, I just love that you just don't put on airs. It's like, who's got time for that? So we're just going to get right into it. I just have to know personally, after knowing everything that you have been through in life and yet to go through, what's it like for you hearing the future president of the United States mention the trans community in his acceptance speech?
I mean, it's 2020, first of all, so way to be here. But secondly, yeah, it's important. It's really important. And it's nice to finally be able to say, thanks, that's really great, as opposed to, please stop saying those things. They really, really hurt people,
There's been a boom of big name celebrities coming out as trans, bisexual, non-binary, and gay. We haven't yet fully convinced the LGB of trans inclusion in our group. How do we start having the conversation with mainstream United States of how to include the trans community into society? And what can I do as a gay, Latino, fabulous man do to help with the trans movement?
People don't realize that the reason why we are the LGBT community is because of gender, actually, and because we're all impacted, we're all oppressed by what people think of gender. We live in a society where people say, if you're a man, then you have to be with a woman, and if you're a woman, you have to be with a man. That's heterosexism, right? Now, imagine if you are a woman who becomes a man, or a man who becomes a woman. You're also not doing it right? In the same way that heterosexist culture says, if you're a man who wants to be with men, or a woman who wants to be with women, or someone who wants to be with both, you're not right. Does that make sense? So it's like we're oppressed for the same reason. It's because people who are even, more mainstream, or rather more traditional, have decided that there's this way that we have to be. And if you're not doing it, particularly with your gender, then you're not right. So the idea that, and I will say bisexuals get a lot of guff also. And so most bisexuals are really actually very understanding of trans people. I would say that it's lesbians and gays who are stuck in a binary way of thinking as well. And it doesn't make sense because it's sort of like hitting yourself in the face, right? You're oppressed for the same reason. So turning around and doing it to us makes no sense, right?
Well, and as the gay community, always said, you know what I do in the bedroom doesn't affect you. You should still support me. Well, it's the same with the trans community. We don't have to go through a gender journey or an identification journey, and it really doesn't affect us to the point that we should try to put it in a box or shut it away. It's about the person. It's not about what they have to go through. It's, the same reasons that we want acceptance is the same reasons why anybody wants acceptance. And I want to talk about the major milestones that you've had in your career, making trans and television history, not once, but twice. How has your career changed from those moments? Has there been a big shift? What's the biggest change in your career that you've seen from these milestones?
Having a really big historic television break back in 2015 brought me into the TV world, right? Into TV and film, and took me from, I had a international theater career for a long time before that. So it wasn't like I just walked off the street, right? It's just that I got in front of more people. And that's what happens every time. Every time there's a big newsworthy thing, people start to see you. Right. And as a trans person, as an actor, in sort of all of my most important identities, being seen and people saying, oh, I see your potential. I see what you can do. Right. That's all I need to keep moving on this path. And so I'm grateful for every moment that happens and every door that continues to open.
You and I have talked before, very openly about this. Is there a popularity contest that trans women in Hollywood are winning over trans men? There seems to be this glamorization of some of the actresses that we love seeing in their gowns. And, I believe that there's a bit of a popularity contest. Do you think actors like Elliot Page coming out will kind of shift that focus so it's all inclusive? Or do you even think it's an issue?
Well, I mean, first of all, 44 trans women have been murdered this year. So the visibility that comes with a price, right? So I would really hesitate to say popularity context, though I know where you're coming from when you're saying that. What you're saying is we see a lot more trans women than we see men. And yes, part of that is the glamour, right? We love that, right? We love glamour. We love gowns. We love femininity until we don't, which is always really interesting, right? The way that sexism and misogyny plays out. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. Yeah.
Right. And so, trans men and masculinity in general is less showy, right? And so I think that's one part of it, right? People just think, oh, okay, you're a dude now. And that's actually not the case, right? Trans men, trans masculine people, we come with a much deeper story, and we have so much to say about what it means to be a man. That's why I wrote the show Becoming a Man in 127 Easy Steps. It's kind of a joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like an IKEA furniture piece.
It is, right? All these tools, right? Yeah, it's like that. So people are really sleeping on trans masculinity. They really need to see the stories that we have to tell. And that's kind of my biggest mission, is helping people see those stories, helping people see my community and realize what cool, exciting stories we have to bring.
We are talking in our next issue of MetroSource, we're talking with GLAAD. And I did more research. I was understanding what a pressure they've put on studios to have consultants from the LGBT community, which I know you've been doing in the last few years. What exactly does a consultant from our community do? And what is Hollywood doing right automatically? And what are some of the mistakes that you see that as a consultant, you kind of have to educate Hollywood?
Yeah, so the reason why we have to have consultants is because we don't have, and particularly trans consultants, right? We don't have trans people in the positions of power to tell the stories. So, I work with, for instance, a lot of cisgender writers who are trying to tell transgender stories. And until such a time as transgender writers can get their stories made, right now there are only 2 trans people who have had features, big popular features made in the last year, right? So that if you think about all of the writers for all of the films, right, that's a small number. So, and really artistry is artistry. It's complicated, but at the same time, trans people have a really specific perspective. And if you're not trans, you don't see it. You just can't. In the same way, similar but different way that like I can't write a Black person story, right? There are going to be things that I simply cannot see, right? And I accept that as a white person, and I would rather hear a Black person tell their story, right? Because it's important that they do that. So when someone brings me on as a trans consultant, I'm able to look and go, okay, here are the problems with your script because you don't have that experience. You wouldn't know that these things do or don't happen. So I start there. Then we go into, go onto set. I make sure that all the people are trained on the set so that everybody uses the correct pronouns for the actor, right? And make sure that they're taking care of them so that the actor can just come and just act, just be an actor and just shine, right? And then we make sure too that the director isn't like focusing on somebody's Adam's apple or hands, right? Doing these visual tropes, right? That are the way that all of our history, if you watch the Netflix documentary Disclosure, it shows you very clearly all of the stereotypes that Hollywood has created that to teach people how to see trans people, right? So I go in there and I help them not make those problems. And what's amazing is that so many people really get this now. And they're like, yes, we absolutely have to do this. I just got a call today. We're writing a trans character into the script. Can you please check it and make sure that, we're doing it right? And then can you come and do the rest of your work on the production? Yes, absolutely. There is no problem with asking for help in this regard. And it is the one place we as a society, right, we're trying to build bridges and we're trying to make each other really a part of, this, I'm doing this, you know what I mean? This connection that we all have, right? Yes, there are going to be things that you don't know. So ask somebody who does, right? Somebody whose profession it is to know, who can help you. There's nothing wrong with that. And it actually just makes a much better story. As you see with EUPHORIA, people love EUPHORIA. They love the trans representation there. It's because Hunter Schafer herself has a lot to do with it. And I back her up on that and make sure that what she's bringing is really, really showcased and highlighted and enjoyed.
It's funny, when we were having our first kind of conversations together, what I was saying is, we don't have this wealth of trans actors to pull from to tell these stories. There was the whole Scarlett Johansson, controversy. And we can't say that anymore. We can't say now we don't have any highly visible trans actors. And that is such a difference of, I think, even 2 years. Up until, this summer, COVID has made a lot of actors spend time with themselves, so to speak, and then be honest about who they are, and then kind of F the world, I need to live for myself, and are coming out left and right. It's like, I can't keep up with everything.
It's wonderful, isn't it? It's great.
Yeah.
And to think about all of the actors who couldn't come out, like when we were kids, right? Who couldn't come out because it would cost them their whole careers. And then when I find out that like the mom on Family Ties, who my family watched all the time, was a lesbian. You know what I mean? Like, what would that have done for me to know that so many of the stars that I was watching growing up were like me, right? And now kids now don't have to go through that feeling of like, why, this sort of mime in a box, feeling of like, why do I feel so invisible? What am I running up against here?
Well, and it's part of that. And it's also the language is now being seen on major television, on the big screen, so that families have this language to even have the conversation. When I was young and kind of having these sexual feelings, it was so in the closet, coming from a Latin family, coming from a conservative Catholic family, and there were no gay programs growing up. So we didn't even have that language. And I thought, it was some evil secret because I wasn't seeing it displayed. And I didn't even know how to put those feelings into words because I had never seen it, to your point. So, but part of this representation is, and we're having conversations about gender identity and sexuality. Trans youth seem to be coming out younger and younger, and supported by their parents, by the way. In relation to your own journey, do you think individuals should wait to start the transition process? Is there a young that's too young?
So this is one of those issues that cis people make up, right? It's called concern trolling. And there's a book about it where they're trying to say that trans men are lock up your daughters, we're coming for them. Okay, so this is actually not really a trans issue. This is cis people having feelings about things that they don't understand, okay? I'm going to be real with you about this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was 3 years old and I knew that I was trans. Okay. I knew that I was trans for my entire life, and there was no language. There weren't people that I could look at to find out. It took me until I was 20 to be able to to be able to meet somebody like me who could help me understand my own story and then become the person I wanted to be. I became clinically depressed at age 11. I went through puberty suicidal, and all of that could have been halted. All of that could have been helped by people around me, grown-ups around me saying, and look, I'm not blaming anybody because they didn't have the language either, right? But kids today now have grown-ups around them who can say, okay, this is probably what's going on for you. So how can we support you? How can we make sure you're not bullied? How can we make sure that you feel okay when this world is constantly doing this fire hose of what masculinity and femininity should be, like what you should look like and how you should act as a boy or a girl, right? How can we keep you safe inside of that and know that who you are is what matters the most, right? I'm not talking about any kind of hormones or surgery, which, by the way, it is, just so you know, it is actually not very easy at all for a minor to get hormones, and especially not to have surgery. But I tell you what, I'd rather have a kid who transitions than a dead kid. And that is how serious this is. So I need cis people to stop having opinions about it and start thinking about the children who are actually killing themselves at a rate much higher, okay, than lesbian or gay kids do. All right. And I need you to start having compassion and going, wow, maybe we could be supportive rather than being a child's first bully. That's the reality of the situation that people need to really take to heart. You know, that's what I got to say about it.
You know, and it is kind of true. It's just like whatever kind of fear we can put on. With this whole political bullshit we've been through, I had a conversation from somebody from high school that I had no clue was so conservative. Should have known coming from OC. And we were talking about same-sex marriage, and they related it to somebody going after their kids in the bathroom because they allow transgender people into a bathroom. Number one, that wasn't even part of the conversation we were having. Number two, that's where they were equating the LGBT equality movement to, was that instance, which we know that is the most bullshit thing I have ever heard brought up. You're talking about a pedophile, number one. You're not even talking about gender identity issues. And it's not even, it's so ridiculous in my mind that conversation went there. And so I didn't have the energy, unfortunately, to try to even educate, because at that point it was so ridiculous to me. But I want to talk about your film, Becoming a Man in 127 Steps, or Easy Steps. So we know it hit the film festival circuit, but we're in stupid COVID, so you didn't actually get to see it on the big screen. That has got to be so frustrating on so many levels, because I know how many years this project, I mean, it's literally your life's work, like literally your life's work. Tell our audience what the film is about, and tell me what you kind of want the future of this film to be, because it kind of had like a false party.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's wonderful. We got into Tribeca, we got into Outfest, we had, people loved it. We got great reviews. So that's all good. Now we're in the process of getting distribution so that it can come to a screen near you. The project is, it's a one-man show special, like you're kind of used to, but it's, again, pushing the boundaries, and it's a little different. We took live footage of me in front of an audience, but we also did some experimental and cool stuff inside of a studio, because every single one of the stories of the 127 stories in this project has like a different feel and a different voice, if you will. And every person is made up of a multiplicity of stories, right? You have great stories and hard stories and funny stories and, ridiculous stories. And that's all part of who you are. So in 1 hour, we kind of put together the sort of audience favorites and just the strongest stories that really look at what it means to become a man, right? And what that can mean. And it just sort of blows the top off the one-man show special genre, and also everything that I think you know about being a man. So I hope you get to see it. You will. It's coming out this year.
Good. So 127 easy steps. What, if we were to kind of, put this on the step level, what was the hardest step and what was the easiest step?
So the hardest step was, as I said, I grew up with no language around this. And so the hardest step was just going, oh, this is what I am. People want to tell you that you're mentally ill, that you're attention seeking, that you know, there's something else wrong with you, when really, like, nature is diverse and gender is diverse, and there have always been people like me in every culture across all history and time. So it's really just like a very simple answer, right? So like just getting the simplest answer that, like, oh, I am what I knew myself to be at age 3, and now I'm going to live my life. That was the hardest part. The easiest part comes from that first step, right? As soon as you accept yourself and just say, you know what, you can have your opinion, that's fine, but it actually doesn't change the fact that I'm sitting here in front of you having this life, right? Once you have that kind of confidence, you can move into the rest of your life as the person that you are and just have those experiences, all of those amazing experiences that make you who you are.
What I love about this boom of representation and access to education and knowledge is that we are uncovering figures from history, figures from Hollywood that are gay, trans, and now we're able to kind of share their stories, which I love. HBO Max's docuseries Equal. Where in your youth would you ever imagine that you as a trans man would be playing a gay man for a major cable network telling these stories? I mean, even 10 years ago, that would have been like, no. That must have been somewhat surreal, kind of filming that, thinking about this circle that experience was.
It's wonderful. And I mean, I will say, even now, it's still hard for people to look at me for cisgender roles. I mean, I have to tell people I'm trans for them to know that I am. But in the acting world, they're surprised, you know, they're like, oh, I don't know, I can't see it. So it was a nice thing. And it happened because I look like Craig Rodwell. My hair is much longer now, but at the time, COVID hair. At the time, I looked a lot like Craig Rodwell, and they said, okay, he can act. He's got, he can do this part. I actually auditioned for the role that Theo Germain played, which was a non-binary trans character. That was the role that I was asked to audition for. But when they were looking at it, they're like, he looks like Craig Rodwell. He should totally play him. Yeah. And so thankfully, as an intelligent bunch of producers, I mean, HBO is a wonderful place for thinking people, and the whole production crew was LGBTQ, and they realized, right, if we're doing the work of expansive representation, let's just go ahead and do it. All right, my phone is ringing. I didn't turn it off. My bad.
Now, is this a conversation that you have to keep having with, let's say, your agent or manager? Like, put me in front. I want to be put in front of all roles. Is that something you constantly have to say, or is it like what's coming to you most as an actor right now?
Well, it's less that, my representation really gets it, and they get that I'm an actor, I can play a role, right? And that my gender actually, people get all confused because the whole transgender actors in transgender roles thing. That's because transgender actors weren't being invited to participate in transgender roles, okay? Right. It's about workplace equality, if we want to bring it down to that level. At this point, we're trying to move forward. The next step is, if trans actors can play cis people, then yes, we're much closer to the role, to the place where we can all play whatever roles, right? But you have to get to that equality first, and we're not there yet. My team understands I'm an actor, I can act, let's just go forward. But then they run into and have to do education with casting directors, with directors, with producers, with financiers, with distributors, right? All of these layers and layers of people who still have to be educated to understand that it's really about what an actor brings to the role, right? In an equal way, right? This is what we meant from the beginning. Does that make sense? About actors just being actors.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We were talking before we started recording about how we're just kind of tired. This year has been difficult for anybody on any level, but then we've had to fight what's happening socially, politically, way back from the BLM protests to this current presidency to just what happened this last week. And then we had Pride season in that. I know that you did a lot of digital Pride stuff because that's kind of what's expected when you're, a trailblazer. But there also comes that time where you must feel every interview you give is going to talk about LGBT issues. They're going to talk about your making history. They're going to talk about what your opinions are. Does that just kind of get a little exhausting? It's like you always have to be on. You always have to have your facts. You kind of know what the conversation is going to be about or kind of circle about. And then we have to deal with COVID, and then we have to deal with, you still have to audition. You still have to make money. You still have to film stuff. This last year must have been pretty damn exhausting for you. How do you work that through? I call it activist fatigue. How do you work through that and breathe? Because it's not easy.
Well, I'm still a white person. I still, you know what I mean? For as hard as it is for me. And you bring up a lot of different pieces, right? Like, certainly I wish that we could have deeper conversations. I wish I didn't have to answer the same 5 questions about what it is to be transgender, but I did sign up for that, right? Like, I am openly trans. I will talk about it because I do want us all to collectively move forward, and we don't all move forward until we all move forward, right? So, I'm invested in that, and that is part of what I'm here to do. But, I am a white person who has all kinds of privilege. I have the privilege of having press support me and talk about me and be able to talk about transgender issues in the news, right? I'm safe and comfortable at home. I'm not living with an abusive partner or an abusive family, right? Like, this time has really shown me all of the privileges that I do have, and it's become my fuel for using that privilege, all of the many privileges that I have, to stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? With all of the people who are impacted and who don't, even queer youth, right? Who don't have the power or the empowerment that I do, right? Empowerment is privilege, right? And I have that. So I'm going to use it, and I'm going to, share, because again, we don't all move forward until we all move forward. So
I love that.
Yeah, that's what
I really love that. Okay, all right. We could talk and talk and talk because there's so many issues going on right now, and it's like, I feel that kind of energy. It's like we've talked so much, and there's still so much more to talk about. And unfortunately, we see how much more our nation needs to be educated on so many different issues. And the struggle is still real. We're looking at this new presidency like everything's going to change overnight. And what we've seen from the actions of millions of our citizens is we're not even close to people understanding the war is definitely not over. It's just beginning. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our youth and a lot of our community members are going to be caught in the crossfire. And so we have to continue having these conversations. I was surprised by how many of our community were not politically involved, didn't want to make a stance on their social media, and not saying that you need to be pressured to do something you don't want to do, but now's the time to come forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in solidarity, and what you do, you're a cisgender gay man, right? You could go have your party. Totally ignore uber gay. You could completely ignore transgender issues, but you're in solidarity. You use your platform to share my story, right? Like, you do what you can do where you are with what you have, right? Not everybody is cut out to be a rah-rah activist, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can make the decision to be in solidarity with other people and to say, I know what's right and what's wrong. I'm going to make sure that you know that I'm on your side, right? And that is what we need more than anything at this moment. We need to know, that we're together on this, right? That it can seem overwhelming, but we have to remember that, like, QAnon and all of these really out there folks, they're actually a very small number of people with a very big microphone, right? And so the more that we remind each other, hey, I'm on your side, I got your back, across whatever differences that we have with one another. And if we just start where we are with what we have and help others from there, you don't have to go out holding signs. You don't even have to put it on social media, because honestly, just putting it on social media and not doing anything else is just
That's the flip side of that. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So where you are with what you have, and just, what's good. We are all very clear on what is right and what is wrong right now. So do the right thing. That's it. No matter what you do, we're in a field of shit. Everybody pick up your shovels and dig where you are. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I think part of that too is what you touched on earlier is, asking the questions. Like I very candidly, I learned more from you in our early time together, because you were like, you can ask me anything. There's no dumb question. And it's like, well, we're so afraid to ask something that's going to be politically incorrect. We're so afraid to offend people. But at the same time, if we're not asking certain questions, and if those questions are not being received on a positive note, then we don't learn. And so I've learned so much about you because you let me ask stupid, ridiculous questions. And now I'm a more informed person, and I feel part of the fight because I understand. But I had to ask some dumb questions because we're still not asking the right questions. We're still not answering the right questions, because, we're so afraid to offend people.
Absolutely. I will say not everybody is like me, right? Some people just want to live their lives and not talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, there are so many people like me all over social media, right? So you can educate yourself. Sometimes people ask me questions online and I just write them back. Here's a link where you can find it. And I send them to Google. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like,
yeah, you have to.
So yeah, but you do have to educate yourself. Sometimes you get lucky and you have someone in your life who's really willing to give you their perspective, and it's always just one person's perspective, right? I am more of an expert, right? I have a broader vision of things and a broader education on things. So I can tell you not just my perspective, but a kind of more academic and experienced perspective. But, if you don't have that person in your life, you can find that person on Instagram right now. You know what I mean? Not just me, but all kinds of folks, right? Go listen to Peppermint. Okay. I love Peppermint. Go listen to Laverne Cox.
We love Peppermint.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Peppermint is amazing. Go listen to Theo Germain. Go. There are so many people that you could be listening to right now who can give you such a broad and deep perspective on any of the issues. Right. So just go find them. Have fun. This is the benefit of age.
And there's great programming out there from documentaries to shows about some of these themes. How we're just like, oh my God, did you see the last episode of Bridgerton? Why don't we start saying, yes, and did you see this documentary? It informed me like this. It's just as cool.
Right, exactly, 100%. If I had to say, if everyone watching will please go to Netflix and watch the documentary Disclosure, that would be an amazing homework for you to do. You will learn so much about transgender people in media and how you've been taught to see transgender people wrong over time and how to start moving forward in a different direction. That's the one. It is 2 hours max out of your life, and it will teach you so much. Go watch Disclosure.
Our interview with Jeremy Blacklow from GLAAD, he's the director of entertainment media. He picked that. I asked him, what's the top project that we should be proudest of from the LGBT community? And that was his choice. Okay, are you ready to play a little rapid fire?
Okay, I only have 5% battery left. Let's go.
Oh God, okay. What would your political slogan be?
Love, don't hate.
Okay, what action film would you have cast yourself in? Any action film from all of Hollywood history.
Predator.
Word or phrase used by or in description of the LGBTQ community that just it's your biggest pet peeve. You're like, no, idiot.
Lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh, yes. What would your American Idol audition song be?
Because of You.
Okay. And what would your drag name be?
Mason Dixon.
I'm going to steal that from my Grindr profile name. Tell everybody where they can find you and follow you, and what piece of your work do you want them to watch the most?
I am on all the social medias. It says right up here, at Turner Schofield. Find me, follow me. Thank you. You can also follow my project, Becoming a Man in 127 Easy Steps, on Instagram and Facebook. Look it up. And watch Studio City. When it comes, watch Becoming a Man in 127 Easy Steps. And if you are outside of the United States, because the US is sleeping on this movie, you can watch an amazing film called The Conductor, and you will enjoy it.
Yes. I love it. I always love talking with you. Congratulations on all your success. And congratulations on your anniversary, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Love and positive energy your way. Thank you so much.
Right back at you. Thanks so much.
All right, that has been my chat with Scott Schofield. You can read my in-depth interview with him in our current issue of Metrosource on newsstands across the nation or at metrosource.com. And that's your episode. I am your host, Alexander Rodriguez. You can find me on Instagram at AlexanderIsOnAir. Until next time, stay true and do you, boo. That has been another Metrosource Mini. Like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and check out the latest issue of Metrosource magazine on newsstands or online at metrosource.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram at Metrosource, and on Twitter at Metrosource Mag. Until next time, stay fabulous.